Boundless is a narrative retelling of the Old Testament. Basically, you think about God, and as you think about God, you think a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, your mind is flooded with it. But basically, you look at it as we serve a limitless God with no boundaries, with no limits, nothing holding him back. Faith should itself be limitless. If Jesus says, "Hey, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains." Well, what does faith look like? So, the question really is, if you serve a limitless God, what is it like to have a limitless faith? Boundless is the journey through that. One day, I was sitting in the parking lot here at FCA, and I was about to pick up all my kids, which can be absolute madness, like gorillas bouncing around in my van. I hope they don't see this when they're older. But anyway, I had been wanting to write a book that was different than the stuff I've written in the past. And I've had a lot of people on me like, you need to write a devotional book, or you need to write a book about leadership. I don't really want to. So I sent my wife a text and I said, hey, I want to write a book about faith and I want to call it Boundless. And she sent me a real nice text back, like, okay, go for it, you can do it. And just one of those generic, like, okay, honey, moments. And she's always been very good into my corner, but it was just I think I caught her off guard. And I just thought, you know what? No, I'm going to do a book on faith. And at the time, I was planning stuff for the church as far as a sermon series. And I thought, you know what? Faith has always been something very special to me. I really think we just need as a church to go on an extended journey of faith and just really investigate faith very strongly. So I started writing Boundless, and the original idea was to have a devotional book or a leadership type book with faith as the backdrop. So I wrote a couple chapters about a few times in my life where faith was pivotal, and one chapter centered around a roommate of mine who was killed in college. And one centered around just philosophy as far as our intelligence versus God's intelligence, and I called it an ant and a keyboard. And I've since made it a blog instead of a chapter. But I had written several chapters, and how I wanted to approach the Boundless project was variety. I wanted a lot of different stuff in the context. So what I did was I had written one chapter different than the other chapters, and I wanted so badly to do a story about Eden, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And I thought, if we could only understand that chapter, we can really understand faith, because the whole thing is about being close with God. So I'm working with it, and I wrote a narrative just retelling of Adam and Eve. And my wife had been reading everything to date, and she got that chapter, and she comes into my office, because I was at the church at that time, and I had sent it to her the night before, but she comes into my office, and she looks at me, and she just has that look while she's holding the manuscript. And I'm like, what was it that bad? Like, that was what I was thinking. I was like, it was just an idea. I can totally scrap it and just keep going this other direction. And she sits down at my desk, and she says, you have to do more of this. And I'm like, but listen, I don't want to, because I've done the storytelling thing. I've written a couple novels now. I've done that. And she said, no, you need more of this. She said, it's not that the other stuff was bad. Okay. And she said, no. She said, it's not that the other stuff was bad. She said, this makes me want to not put this down. So I thought, all right, am I onto something, or is that a bad idea? Because I've done the storytelling thing. I really didn't want to do that again. And I started thinking, you know what? No, I just need to do this. I need to push it on. So I had written that chapter on Eden, and so I wrote another one on Noah and the flood. And I thought, okay, this is just a test. I want to see if I can do 2 chapters just like this. And I gave it to her. She comes back in, and she's like, okay, who's next? Okay, I'll do, and then I think I did 2 chapters on Noah, and then I came back and I wrote one on Abraham, and she's like, okay, you're on to it. And so that kind of really unleashed the story. And so what I did with Boundless was, the idea and the concept is to go through signature moments of faith in the Old Testament, and really try to capture it. When you look at the Bible, John in his gospel was very clear. He says, look, I wrote this gospel so you would believe in Jesus. Okay, that is why he wrote it. And the Bible is a beautiful book for so many reasons. I mean, it stood the test of time, and it's thorough, and yes, it's inspired of God. Yes, it's without failure. But one of the things that we have to remember is the Bible was written so you would believe in God, okay? While there's a lot of great stuff to it, primarily that's why. So you read through it, and you go back and you think, okay, so I believe in God now. How do I continue to grow? And the Bible is very rich with that. But my thought was, okay, I want to write something that can do two things. I want to get people who don't know much about the Bible interested in the Bible. I want them to read a chapter of this and think, wow, I've never thought of Adam and Eve like this before. I need to know more about this and dive in. But then also, there's a lot of us who've read the Bible a couple times, okay? And man, once you've read it a couple times, you kind of walk away with the smug attitude, oh, well, I've read the Bible. I know what I'm doing. I don't care how old you are, how many times you've read it. You don't know it as well as you could. So my other goal is people who've read the Bible before, I want you to look at this and think, oh my gosh, I did not think of it like that again. And go completely back to the drawing board and just really have to rethink through the great moments of faith within the Old Testament. So that's really where the idea, it started here and ended up, I don't know how, way over here, but whatever, it was cool. One of my favorites that I did, and it was risky, okay? One of the things that I did was in Abraham's story, I don't tell it from Abraham's perspective. I tell the story from Sarah's perspective. And it starts on her deathbed. So the whole chapter starts off with a deathbed confession. Here's Sarah, here's Abraham by her side, Isaac's by her side, she's dying. But I tell the story from a woman kind of jaded and frustrated with her husband from over the years. And here's a woman who, she has faith along with Abraham, but we tell the story of Abraham from Sarah's deathbed backward. So we start off, and here she is, she's passing away, but her mind is still bitter with Abraham nearly sacrificing Isaac. And so there's still just that unspoken tension there, and it's like, okay, they come down from the mountainside, Isaac's glad to be alive. Hey, Mom, God sent a goat. And why? And then here you have Abraham who's like, oh, I was going to kill our son. Okay, your God told you to do what? So I really try to say, okay, we believe the Bible. This is something that literally happened. So what family emotions as a mother does this woman have when your husband just tried to kill your son in the name of God? Okay, there's a lot of things to make sense, and there's a lot of Jesus in the story of Abraham. So really trying to capture that and capture location and significance and all the sacrifice there. And you get to the point where she at first doesn't understand it, but she totally understood now why Abraham would listen to God by faith. And then they go through other moments of faith and his call and the journey they took. And finally, it's like she's very proud that she was able to follow this man Abraham through life and their faith there. But that was a really interesting chapter for me to write. The other one was Noah. When I wrote the chapter on Noah, I'm sitting here trying to think, okay, what is something people who have talked about Noah and the ark have never done before? Okay, the movie just came out, last year? So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, there's parts of the movie, I might agree with. There's definitely parts of the movie would not agree with at all. In the movie, it's a cinematic thing. You're hearing people scream. Okay, what if this flood comes on so fast that they have to get in the boat and just go? What does Noah see the first time the rain stops and he looks out over the deck? How much death? Are there bodies present? How much death does he see? And if you're Noah, are you mad at God for killing all these people? And even though he spared you, I want to ask the question with Noah, what emotions did that dude wrestle with? Yes, I'm going to be faithful to you, God, but why did you let it happen? And then I go from there and even to, okay, what did God feel at the passing of all these people? And so, there's just interesting things that you play with. And, Moses and the story of the burning bush. And one of the things I really tried to capture with Moses was, here's a guy who's just broken. I mean, the man is broken. He fled from Egypt because there was an issue there. He's just broken. And him allowing God to use him is just basically, we're putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, and we're throwing him out to service, okay? Moses went through all of these excuses not to listen to God. So the moral of the story I want the readers to get out of that is, okay, we might have our excuses on not to listen to God, but this is maybe why we should. And this is where that faith, if you can just push through that, will take you. So those were some interesting things, but it's been really difficult for me you feel a stronger connection as you're writing it and going through it. And it's like, wow, I never thought of Adam like this. I never thought of Noah or Abraham or whomever like this, or David. And it's been interesting. Life after Boundless. Well, the Shadows projects have all been signed on to another publisher and will now be reproduced, and that'll start at some point over the summer. So they'll no longer be called Shadows, but it'll now be called Avonlea. It'll be the Avonlea Saga. So I'm really excited about that. But book one, what was formerly known as Shadows, will be reprinted with a new publisher, new chapters, all that. And again, it'll be renamed Avonlea. That release date will be at some point this summer. I've not got that pinpointed down. So that's next. The next project after that is, I'm hoping, where Boundless is a walk through the Old Testament. It looks right now like the sequel to Boundless will come out very quickly in a fall. And that'll be called Legacy, and that'll go through the New Testament. As far as you see so many people in the New Testament just leaving behind an epic legacy. So how can we go through the stories of Jesus, the apostles, just the rest of the Bible, and really say, okay, what's some different vantage points we can look at with that? So hopefully that'll be a fall release. It's definitely not. You could use it as a devotional book if you wanted to. It's just not written out as the daily, day 1, day 2, or February whatever or March whatever. So it could be there, but I mean, it's, instead of like, here's a scripture and here's an explanation of a scripture or a traditional devotion book, this is just a straight, every chapter is anywhere from 7 to 12 pages. Just a straight, here's a new way to look at the story of Joseph, the story of David, Elijah, whomever that might be. Totally that. One of the things that I wrestled with was the Message Bible. Versus this is, I have a tendency to write long books, and I'm really trying not to. Boundless will be right at a 200-page realm. I'm purposely keeping it brief. So when we ask the question, what's next for Boundless, knowing me, probably an expanded version of Boundless at some point where I've literally gone through the Old Testament. But for now, we're keeping it brief. But you look at the Message, and I go through and say, some people like to read the Message because it's a good narration of Scripture, but the Message is literally all the Old Testament. This, I'm just going through select stories of that and trying to provide a more narrative outlook. It's not trying to replace anything in the Bible or anything to that effect. It's just trying to, here's something maybe that the Message Bible would do. I'm just trying to give a new perspective as if you were present and watching this unfold. How would you have done it? Okay, I'm not trying to retranslate Scripture. I'm just trying to tell a story as if it's the first time maybe somebody hears it. I'm going to have a link. I have a Facebook page for my writing. It used to be the Shadows Facebook page, but I just changed it out to just be to follow my writing, so I don't saturate stuff with on my own personal Facebook page or whatever. There's just a Trevor Littleton author Facebook page. I'll have all my information there. I believe right now the date is March 8th. Is when it comes out, and it'll be available both in paperback and also on Amazon Kindle and Nook and all the fun digital rounds you gotta go through.